Well, let's start by introducing myself. My name is Leandro Madrazo. I'm the coordinator of TIMEPAC. I'm a researcher at the ARC Research Group and also a professor at La Salle School of Architecture here at the Ramon Llull University, where we are conducting this webinar this morning. In this webinar, as you can see in the title, number 4 of this series, we will focus on the integration of EPC databases with other sources to facilitate a comprehensive analysis of the built environment, complementing EPC data with other data. We will delve into the structure and content of the EPC database in Catalonia, in particular, and explain the work we have done in TIMEPAC to verify the quality of this database. We will also provide an example of integration of EPC databases with other data sources based on the work we are conducting in another research project called Directive. Let's start by introducing first, well, this is my introduction. Let's start introducing first the TIMEPAC project from a general introduction to know the context of these webinars and what we are trying to do in this series of training programs. So the diagram that you see here is the diagram we produced already like 4 or 5 years ago when we presented the proposal of TIMEPAC to the Horizon 2020 program. And our vision in that time already was that we had to move from a one-off certification and isolated building certificate to a more comprehensive assessment of the building performance over the lifetime. So originally the certificate, the energy performance certificate, was a label to a product, the building, to know the performance, particularly regarding the energy. That was the original idea of these energy performance certificates over 20 years ago. The situation has changed quite substantially now, particularly after the latest recast of the EPBD, the European Performance Building Directive, which was just approved by the European Parliament this Tuesday, by the way. The vision now of the certification it goes beyond the isolated building, considers the building as part of a larger environment, which includes also other issues like socioeconomic issues, environmental issues. It also considers that the building is evolving over time. It's not just a label you put at a given time to a building, to an object. For example, when you buy a product in the shop, it's more than that. The building is considered like a structure that is evolving because it's changing physically, but also because the behavior of the occupants, the usage of the building is also changing over time. So our vision of TIMEPAC, or our vision of the certification in the future that we put in this scheme 4 years ago, is very much up to date and is very much aligned with the philosophy of the latest EPBD. A key issue here is data, and data is the focus of our TIMEPAC project. How to integrate this data from different scales and from different domains in order to have a better understanding of the built-in stock, with the purpose, of course, of improving the overall performance with renovation actions. So this is the definition of the energy performance certificate that you can find in the latest recast of the EPBD. And as you can read, it mentions that the content of the certificate should have energy needs, final consumption, renewable energy production, greenhouse gas emissions, and optionally also issues that have to do with the comfort, with the quality of life inside the building, and also with the life cycle global warming potential, if available. So you can see it's not longer only about energy, it's also about comfort, it's about also sustainability issues, which are already included in the latest update of the EPBD. In this context now, when we are talking about EPCs or energy performance certificates, we have to see it in a larger context in relation to other instruments. One of them is the Smart Readiness Indicator, which is in a testing phase now, and which aims to complement the EPC. There are certain overlapping, certain complementarity between the two certificates that are now being explored. But even beyond that, when we consider sustainability, the larger context of sustainability, which is the context where we are really operating when we are talking about energy performance or improving the building stock, sustainability as a whole, then we have another framework, which is the assessment framework of levels, which is also in operation since several years. And in levels, it's not a certification, it's an assessment framework to understand all the multiple dimensions involved in the built environment. So we have to see all of this into relationship, because all of them together conform an ecosystem where many elements are shared and connected. There are databases, there are tools, there are methods, there are procedures, and all of them towards a common target, which is to achieve carbon neutrality in the building sector by 2050. If we focus on the EPC here in this diagram, we see that in the EPBD directive, they're asking to store the EPCs in the databases. They're also asking member states to create national databases with that information, which should be connected to the European Building Stock Observatory. So there are very clear directions how to deal with this data, how to store it, how to process at the European scale. All of this is also related to national databases like the land register, the cadastre. And we put the focus on the smart readiness indicator. We see that the concern about measured consumption, about indoor environmental quality, is also issues that are related, as we have seen, with the EPC. Surrounding the EPC and the SRI, we see the macro objectives of the levels framework, these 7 macro objectives, which in a way, they just 6 macro objectives that in a way they just delimit the scope of our analysis of the built environment. This is the ecosystem we have to consider now when we talk about EPCs. Let's take a closer look to the content of each one of these instruments. In the EPC, the information that should contain, according to the EPBD, is here listed: primary energy, final energy consumption, energy needs, renewable energy sources production, greenhouse emissions, and if they are available, also the indoor environmental quality and the global warming potential. All of that just to put a label to the building. But if we take a look to the impact criteria of the smart readiness indicator, the 7 criteria, we can see that there are certain coincidences, energy efficiency, for example, but also similar concerns about comfort and energy needs and about health. So it has to be solved how these 2 certificates, at the end, they complement each other, something that is being explored at the moment, but definitely the 2 aspects have to be part of the overall evaluation of the building performance. If we add now the 3rd one, which is the levels indicators, with all the indicators you see here that correspond to the 6 macro objectives, then we have the overall picture. And we could even go larger and include here the 17 SDGs, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, to have a complete picture of what we are dealing with when we are talking now about building certification and assessment in the context of sustainability. So all of these instruments require data. And this data is found in databases from different domains, different scales. And this is where the data is stored, managed, processed, retrieved. And each one of these instruments, SRI, EPCs, levels, rely on the existence of this data and the quality of this data and the curation of this data over time. So databases in all the different domains and scales are very important in order to implement these instruments. As you can see here, we are talking about 2 kinds of interconnectivity here. We are talking about interoperability between databases, that, for example, the land register could be related to the EPC database in somehow. This is a challenge at the national level. This has to do with interoperability of databases, but there's also interconnectivity between assessment and certification tools, like the one I mentioned before, between EPC and SRI. Both things are related, of course, because the interconnectivity between the tools can be solved through the interoperability of the databases. So in a way, this diagram shows the important challenge for the future in order to implement all of this vision that is in the EPBD and to make it a useful instrument to achieve the carbon neutrality for the building sector. If you take a look to the latest recast, you will see that databases are mentioned several times. it's written that member states should store all the EPCs in specific databases, that these databases should be also interconnected between them at the national level, that they should be also going up into the geographic scale connected to the European Building Stock Observatory. They're also talking about using building typologies or archetypes in order to store the data and use the data. So this is a very ambitious, of course, objective. It's on the legislation, but at the same time, it's a real research objective. And to be implemented, there are many issues here to be solved about interoperability, about managing the different databases, issues that we'll discuss today, some of them. So as I said, TIMEPAC focus is on data. And this also is a diagram from the proposal, a diagram that has 4 or 5 years already. Our vision was that we think that the data flow about energy performance should be a continuous flow, a seamless flow between the 4 stages that you see here: the generation of the EPC or the certification, the assessment, the storage of that information in databases, the analysis of that information, and finally the exploitation of those analyses. All of this is a continuous loop over time that at the moment presents many problems and challenges. At each one of the stages, separately, generation of EPC is an issue, how to generate it in a more precise way with more accurate tools and data. The storage is also an issue. Not all the regions and countries in Europe have dedicated EPC databases at the moment. We need very powerful tools. Once these EPC databases exist, we need tools to analyze and to understand, to transform the information that is stored in the databases into knowledge that this can be exploited, used through services. So to make all of these things connected and running fluently, there are many challenges at the moment, and these are the challenges we were facing in TIMEPAC. The way we faced these challenges was in the first 2 years of the project, we developed 5 future scenarios of enhanced EPC, which are the ones you can see here. This work has been completed in the 2nd year. It's available as reports in the website of the project. The 5 scenarios, the first one had to do with integrating certification tools with BIM. The second was to integrate consumption data, real data, onto the EPC evaluation. The third one was focusing on renovation passports and EPC. The fourth one was about integrating new indicators as the one we have shown before, SRI and sustainability indicators. And the fourth one, it's about the procedures to exploit the EPC databases and certification to develop large-scale renovation programs. The webinars we have designed, they follow the same structure as the data flow I showed before. We have organized the seminar, the webinars in four stages, starting with the generation, following with the storage, the analysis, and finally the exploitation. We have already delivered 3 of these webinars. We are now in the 4th, which has to do precisely with EPC storage, and also introducing also the exploitation of that data that will be developed later in more detail in other webinars. Okay, that was the introduction to the context of TIMEPAC and our vision and what we have done so far. Now let's go into the program of this webinar. We have 5 sessions today. We are going to deal with different aspects of EPCs, databases. We have 2 representatives of local authorities in Piemonte and here in Catalonia, which are dealing with EPC databases in Italy and here in Spain. We also have, from our work here in our research group, some work to share with you about how to integrate these EPC databases in order to develop large-scale programs for renovation. So overall, we are expected to be finished around 12. So every session will be around 20 minutes. And I would like now to start with the first one and introduce my colleague, Silvio De Nigris, who will talk about the challenges of new energy performance of buildings directive, which was just approved this Tuesday by the Parliament. Regione Piemonte is the managing authority in charge of driving the energy transition towards a low carbon economy in this Italian region. It is the responsible institution for the management of the EPCs in Piemonte. Silvio is an environmental economist. He's working on the promotion of energy efficiency and renewable energy at regional and local levels. He is involved in drafting the regional energy plan in Piemonte. He's also serving as the contact person for the Covenant of Mayors. It has been involved in many European projects, as some of them as a leading partner. He often participates as speaker in conferences at national and international level, and he is also lecturing courses as external expert. So Silvio will give an introduction to some of the main issues included in the new EPBD and about the role of local authorities in their implementation. So welcome, Silvio. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. So I can start. Okay, I prepared a presentation highlighting the challenges that are introduced by the new Energy Performance Building Directive, challenges in terms of local implementation, I would say. So I will bring the perspective of starting a new area of local energy planning at local level. In my narration, I will highlight and stress the fact that it's not a mere energy planning, it's really energy transition planning, since we are moving from a situation, a state of play that need a completely transformation for the future. And I will provide some examples, let's say, that of what we are doing in supporting our local authorities in the region. So let me start with a few information about the region I'm representing. As already Leandro said, I work for the Piemonte region, which is one of the largest regions in Italy. It's located in the northwest part of Italy. We are close to the border of France, let's say. So we have more than 4 million of inhabitants. A large part of them, I would say around 1 million, are located in the capital city of the region, which is Torino, and the neighboring cities. And half of our territory is mountain area. By consequence, I would say that from administrative point of view, we are very fragmented. We have more than 1,000 municipalities, most of which are very small. I would say 80% of them are less than 5,000 inhabitants, and this is something we have to take into account when we are implementing policies or supporting activities for them. Related to energy consumption, I can tell you that from primary energy consumption is around 12 billion tons of oil equivalent. But I would like to stress that we are very much dependent on natural gas. Around 55% of the overall consumption are based on natural gas. And this is a weakness for sure, something we should go out sooner or later, better soon than later, of course. Final energy consumption, it's 10 million tons of oil equivalent, and 50% of those consumption are in the building sector, which means the buildings where we are living or we are going to work. In the past, we were an industrial region, but we passed through a deindustrialization process, and so now it's really our economic is based on service and commerce mainly. Renewables are about 20% of the final consumption, which is a good point to start. But again, we need to speed up the process of the transition, and we can see some good outlook for renewables in the electricity production. Whereas for thermal use, it's more challenging, the situation for the future, for the upcoming years. Okay, this is briefly what is my region about. And I can stress again the news that maybe most of you already know. The EPBD directive has been recently approved by the Parliament, and what to say, this is one of the key legislative tools that will bring the transition ahead. And it's not only a matter of energy efficiency and renewables, it's also let's say an opportunity for the economy, and it is envisaged as the creation of new jobs and relevant opportunities there. But the challenge is very big, and as I will highlight, it's mainly for national government, but also for local governments as well. So let me point your attention to some key aspects that I found very interesting. So first of all, as Leandro already mentioned, member states should provide and draft this national building renovation plan. This should highlight the way the member states are achieving the carbon neutrality of the building sector in 2050. This is a major challenge, of course, that needs to go through several steps. And these plans that are supposed to be sent to the Commission by end of June this year for the first time, will be updated every 5 years. And it should fix some intermediate steps and targets to 2030 and 2040. So as you can see, it's a process that is starting. It's not ending until the end, until the target is achieved. So it's not a matter of today I make a plan, and then we'll see how to implement. But it's a plan, it's implementation, it's check, it's updating and plan again. And so these plans will have an overview of the national building stocks, also for different building types, construction periods, climatic zones, and should also provide an overview of the market barriers, market failures that exist, and also an overview of the capacity in the construction, energy efficiency, and renewable energy sectors. And then they should fix the roadmap that will bring us to carbon neutrality in 2050. In the table, I also provide some preliminary steps that are already fixed in the directive itself that commits member states to reach minimum, let's say, level of performance of the energy classes for the buildings, starting from public buildings and going to the residential buildings. Then it's also very important to highlight that the use of financial resources should be focused on renewables and energy efficiency, and by the 1st of January 2027, it's expected that member states will not provide any more financial incentives for installation of boilers powered by fossil fuels, and natural gas included. So there is also the it's foreseen the full decarbonization of the heating and cooling system with a phase out by 2040 at the latest. As you can see, even here we are completely changing the paradigm and the concept of what is the reality today. New buildings are expected to be zero emission buildings from the 1st January 2027 for public authorities of public buildings, let's say, in general, and from 1st January 2030 for all new buildings. The EPB introduce, or let's say update the introduction of two other important tools that we that we started and try to implement in the TIMEPAC, which is the building renovation passport and the smart readiness indicators. By the end of the year, member states shall introduce a scheme of the building renovation passport, which will be based on a common framework provided by the Commission. And what is important is that this building renovation passport for each building will comprise a renovation roadmap indicating a sequence of renovation steps building upon each other with the objective to transform the building into zero emission building by 2050. So it's really a roadmap that we need to implement in each of the building in order to transform this into carbon zero emission buildings by 2050 at the latest. So it's the stepwise approach in the renovation of the building. And then the smart readiness indicators of the buildings is very important because it's rating the capacity of the building to adapt its operation to the needs of the occupants and the grid. So the interaction with who is living inside a building and the external environment. For the energy performance certificate itself, it should be adapted to the new rules. Let's say what is important is that the A class shall correspond to zero emission buildings, and the G class shall correspond to the 15 worst performing buildings in the national building stock at the time of the introduction of the scale. So there should be a rescalability of the energy classes. As already Leandro said, member states shall provide, shall set up national databases that should be as open as possible to all stakeholders. Again, a call for data-driven actions for full performance, full renovation of the building stock. Okay, we have the EPBD, the new EPBD, of course, but we also add another important step in the legislative revision of European Union, which is the Energy Efficiency Directive that has been approved recently. And if I match this information that I presented to you now with the fact that member states shall ensure that at least 3% of the total floor area of heated and cooled buildings owned by public authorities, public bodies at all levels should be renovated each year, okay, to be transformed into zero emission buildings, and that also from the public sector, we are asked to provide at least 1.9% of reduction in energy consumption each year compared to 2021. Okay, there is really a new and urgent call for local energy planning from local level. This, as I said already in my introduction, is not really energy planning, is energy transition planning. We should really change our mindset when we have a plan. So it's not to understand the trend that are happening and understand what will come in few years, but really have a target which is a complete different energy system and understand how to go there. So change completely the situation which is nowadays. Of course, we already have something, and I'm not presenting now something new. The Covenant of Major Initiative is the most, let's say, important network of local authorities that are committed to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. Is an initiative that This year has 15 years, so it's not new, but it evolved year by year. We had the initiative started in 2008, but then in 2014 there was also the inclusion of adaptation, because the concept of resiliency of a city was introduced. Is important. It's the different phase of the same problem, which is to fight and contrast climate change. And let's say in 2021, the covenant of measure aligned its objective to carbon neutrality. So all the local authorities that were already there have been asked to renew their commitment in view of this long period target, which is carbon neutrality. And we have a quite large amount of municipality already in the network, more than 10,000 municipalities across Europe. And also we have 200 organizations that are defined as territorial coordinator. As Piemonte region, we are territorial coordinator of the region, and we are supporting the municipalities of our territory in adhering to the initiative, but also we are supporting them in the implementation of the plans and the actions that are included in the sustainable energy action plans. Here you see the map of our region with the color are the municipalities that joined already the covenant of measures. As I said, it's not something new. And we had quite a good level of adhesions in the first part of last decades, and then everything, let's say, stopped a little bit. But last year we had a promotional campaign to our local authorities, which was quite effective, and so we had newcomers in the network, and again we should improve this, because I think it's really important that municipalities do their job at local level, although they are small. And in this case, we advise them to aggregate. So work together with neighbors in order to create some aggregation that are make it more easy and also effective the planning at local level. What we do we are supporting the municipalities in different ways in the planning process, for sure, providing them data and informations, and in this way we are acting as kind of energy observatory, and I will show you soon the concept behind. But we are also supporting them in the implementation phase of the plans with financial support while renovating public buildings, or also using European project to implement new actions that can benefit directly municipalities. Also the new concept of renewable energy communities is at the top of our priorities in this month, and we will try to push the change in different ways. So I said we are acting as energy observatory in terms of data. So in the past we had this situation where several municipalities were asking data information to different data providers. Okay, and this was quite a complicated situation where data providers was answering to different requests coming from different municipalities. The concept that we introduced is to put ourselves in the middle. So we are asking only once a year data at the data providers. Then we also elaborate this data and we couple them with information that we have in our own data sets, for example, the energy performance certificates data set, or also the thermal energy plans database that we manage directly. And we put the information that we elaborate in a data cloud web platform where municipalities have access. So this situation is much more it's a win-win situation, let's say, for data provider and municipality. Is less for us because we have quite a big workload, but it's a service that we provide to municipalities and also to data providers. So they are asked information only once a year instead of several times. And also we work a little bit on reliability of data in order that the data that we provide to municipality are consistent each other, and we can also use similar methodologies in case of assumptions. Okay, I think I should go to the end of the presentation here. Just minor information that I put in some charts. This is, let's say, for a study we are doing now for public buildings. Okay, we are quite pretty much involved in supporting municipalities in renovation of their own buildings, as also the directive is calling for. And so this is the situation up to now. We have quite a number of buildings that have been already renovated in past years, but the intention is to move this part of the building, so from D to G, into better classes, so also taking into account that we need to reshape, let's say, the scales according to what will come from the new EPBD. What is very challenging in our understanding is also the fact that most of these buildings are quite small. So in terms of energy efficiency and savings, it's not easy to have some paybacks which make sense. But we have to take care of this, and also all the constraints that we have from architectural point of view and so on. This is another chart that I just wanted to present to you, because it is referred only to the city of Torino, the capital city. It's a very good sample of the buildings that are in the city itself, and if we compare this graph with this one with the public authorities, we can see that okay, taking into account also residential sector, we have more and more buildings or building unit in the worst performing class than, let's say, what in average we have for public buildings. So the challenge ahead is really huge. It's really huge, and we need to find a way to speed up the process as much as possible. If I go with the takeaways, okay, so the call for planning is really strong from the EPBD and the Energy Efficiency Directive, and this is not only for national government but also for regions and municipalities. And we need to stress out the message that it's not something that member states can do themselves and alone. We should work in the same direction at in every level of governance. Data are essential to lead the process, and data, of course, should be available and provided in an open format as much as possible. But also, what I stress is data. It's not a matter of giving this data to municipalities, is also supporting them in understanding what they can do from that, and also support them in the planning process, as we are trying to do the best way. So I thank you very much for your attention. This is my last slide, and I'm here until the end of the webinar.
Okay, thank you very much, Silvio, for keeping on time. And we have a couple of questions on the chat. The first one is from Miroslav and asks, will the renovation passport replace the core EPC, or is a different product? And I can answer that. Yeah, it's a different product. It will not replace the EPC, but every time that you do a building renovation, you have to issue a new EPC update. This is what is established in the new EPBD. And about the second question is from Luca, and Luca is asking if the improvement of the label from the scale, it means to rescale all the values that we have now in the certificate. Maybe Silvio can answer that.
No, as long as I understood, it is on the rescaled values that should be done.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So we move to the next presentation, and I would like now to introduce Ainhoa Mata from the Catalan Institute for Energy. Ainhoa is from the ICAEN, pronounced in Spanish Catalan, ICAEN, Catalan Institute of Energy, is the entity of the government of Catalonia responsible for developing and carrying out the energy policy in the community. One of the tasks of this institute is to collect EPCs and manage the EPC database, facilitating access to the content to the public. Ainhoa is an architect, received a degree of architecture from the Polytechnic University of Catalonia, and later a master in building control and sustainable architecture here at our University Ramon Llull. She's also a lecturer in the Catalan Chamber of Architects, and since 2015, she has been responsible of the buildings unit of the Catalan Institute for Energy. So Ainhoa will give an introduction to the EPC database in Catalonia, the content and the structure. So Ainhoa, whenever you like, you can continue with the presentation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I explain how do we manage the register in Catalonia. And we have seen something about the digital building logbook. This will be a repository to find the information about the buildings and to make easier decisions. For example, if we want to ask for a loan in the bank, so the bank will be able to find the information about how is the building and how we want to change it. Or for example, the conditions of the loans can be better if the label that we want to achieve it's higher, for example. It will be also useful for the public authorities to see how is the park of the building. So where do we have to renovate more buildings? And the information that is set in the EPBD recast is that in this digital building logbook, there will be the EPC, also the renovation passport, that it will be a voluntary document. The different governments will have to develop and to give the opportunity to do this renovation passport, but the use of it will be voluntary. And it's a roadmap to achieve a big renovation, to achieve that the existing building will be a zero emissions building in several steps in order to achieve to do a renovation of all the envelope and the appliances. So we can do it in several steps in order to help the financiation of the renovation. And also there will be a new concept that is the life cycle global warming potential. Nowadays, we know how many emissions are emitted during the use of the building. Thanks to the EPC, it's a calculation, but at least we have some numbers. And we will have to calculate it during the life cycle of the building. So from the materials to produce the construction products, the use, and also when we finish the use of the buildings. It will be, I think, included in the EPC, but we will see how they will be, the new versions of the EPCs. And also the information about the smart readiness indicator, how many controls do we have in our building and how can we improve it. But there's also a lot of information about the buildings that perhaps they will be also in the digital building logbook, like the information of levels to know if a building is more or less sustainable, and to know exactly what do we have to measure to know this sustainability. Also, the information of the BIM. BIM, it's a tool that can help us to have all this information connected, so the data about the building will be more consistent, and there won't be different information and with contradictions. Also, the information of the technical inspection of the buildings, to know if they are safe or we have to improve their structures or their conditions. Is it too far to accomplish the technical building code, this building? Thinking about the new buildings, they have to accomplish the regulation, but what happens with the existing buildings? And also the indoor air quality, that we have to know if we are in comfort in our buildings, and now the calculations are with the actual climate, but will be these new buildings or these buildings that we are renovating also comfortable with the climate that we will have in 2050. So these simulations will be also very, very important to know if they accomplish the indoor air quality. And also if there's the consumptions of the building, if there's information about energy audit, information of energy management systems. So we will see how can we connect this information, because the public bodies that have this data, they are not only one, so we will have to interconnect all this information. And if we see not only the scale of the building, but also the scale of the municipality, there's also a lot of information of municipality systems, of information that we need to make a better urban planning, information of which is the potential of renewable energy in our cities. If we have district and heating and cooling, that we will have to study if they are possible to apply this district heating and cooling in our projects, if we see the EPBD recast. And also the information of the recharging points for the electric vehicles. So there's a lot of data, and we are, I think, in the way to get it. There's a lot to do, but I think that we have also advanced a lot. For example, when I started in ICAEN 15 years ago, we had the EPC register that had started 1 year ago, and all the documents and the EPCs were in paper. So, well, there's a lot of things to do, but we have also done a lot. So there's different ways to access to the EPC register in Catalonia, depending on what do we want to get. And this is related with the user that wants the information. For example, we have the first way to get information is with the search engine, where we can look for one EPC at a time. We can look for with the cadastre or the address or the EPC code, and we can get the EPC without the personal data of the person that did it, and also the label. So it's, I think, the most used part of the Catalan Institute website, because people want to get the label and the EPC, and you citizens that want to sell a house, or EPC certifiers that have just done the EPC and needs the label, or notaries that need to see if this label is correct, is registered, can consult this website. And it's aligned with the EPBD recast that tell us that we have to give access to the data, and it's also aligned with the digital building logbook. Perhaps some years till now, we will talk about this search engine like a first type of digital building logbook, who knows? And there's also an observatory where there's queries already done. So citizens, EPC certifiers can see how is the buildings stocks in Catalonia. And it's related also with the EPBD recast with the EU Building Stock Observatory. There's already a website, but it have to be more usable. But the direction is that we can consult the information of the buildings from different countries from all the countries of the EU. And there will be also the problem of the relationship of the data that they can be compared. We can compare this data. And we can also consult the hypermap, where we see the EPCs in a map that is related with a search engine. So we can consult individually also the information and the open data, where the users would be public bodies, for example, for use the information for urban plan, researchers, ESCOs, because we can make queries about all the open data that we have about the EPCs. And this is all related with the EPBD recast that tell us that there have to be a national building renovation plan. So we will get to improve the energy performance of the buildings, and we will have to compare our savings with the information of the EPCs from 2020, so we can see the evolution of the park. And we can think about it at a national level, but it can be also thought about a regional or municipality level. This is how the search engine looks like. This is nowadays, but we are changing it to trying to be more friendly, because we think that the units that we use for the energy, they are quite a bit strange for the citizens, so it must be explained in a way more easier. And here we have also information about the cadastre with this first approach of the interrelationship between databases, and the label and the EPC can be downloaded of any EPC from the register. This is how the observatory looks like. This is a new version. And we have queries already done about the consumption of non-renewable primary energy. So people takes a look at the noun, and it's pretty difficult to understand. And also the emissions. And we have also information about the use of the buildings, about which is the reason of doing this EPC. For example, most of them it's for selling, but now that there are the grants of the Next Generations funds, there's a lot of EPCs that they are done to get these grants. So people is looking at the EPC in a different way, because they can get some money with the improvement of the EPC to do the renovation of their buildings. And there are also the possibility to filter the information. So these queries that they are already prepared, we can separate the information and to take a look only, for example, to existing buildings or new buildings, or to the year of construction, and to make different filters. Or, for example, to see only the EPCs from a municipality and not all Catalonia. We have also the hypermap to see in the map which are the EPCs and which is the label, and it's related with the search engine. And we have also in open data the information of the 1,400,000 EPCs in Catalonia. So here is where we have more possibilities to get and the information that we want to from the EPCs from Catalonia. They are 69 fields, so we can take a look at which tool has been used in the EPCs, or for example, to know when was the EPC done. Also, we can make queries about the location or the climate zone or the characteristics of the buildings because of with the surface or the construction or the appliances, and also the results that we get from the EPC with the energy demand or the emissions. Well, 69 fields, there's a lot of combinations to do. And this is the different data sets that we have about the register. We have the general information with 69 fields, but there's also another data sets, one of the envelope. So we have 22 fields to know exactly the orientation of the different facades, to know the surface of the different parts of the envelope, the transmittances, the solar factor, etc. And also another data sets about facilities, which type of facility is there, which is the energy performance, the energy source, and we can create a user and to have our own queries so we can update them and to have this information. And this is the type of queries that we can do. We can select the dimension of x-axis, so we can select which value do we want to show in the graphic. We can also choose the y-axis, and inside the x-axis, we can select a group of dimension. In the example, we see the different regulations and which is the label that the buildings got. We can select different types of graphics to see if we want a bars chart or a pie chart, and we can make filters in order to select which type of information we want to see. For example, existing buildings or new buildings or from a location specific. And down will be shown in a table the EPCs that are in the graphic. We can also edit the text. In fact, it's also in English, so there's the possibility to see the queries in this way, in this language. We can select the colors. For example, to relate the labels with the official color. And we can choose if we show the legend or not. Or for example, if the numbers they are in percentage or not. Well, there's different possibilities. And here we can see a couple of examples. We can see not only graphs but also a map with the same type of consultation with the open data. So this is a consultation about blocks apartments, not all the buildings, but only block apartments that they have a G with non-renewable energy and primary energy, and from Barcelona. And for those that we know Barcelona, we see a difference with the number of G labels because, for example, there's a neighborhood that it's called Poblenou, that it's newer than the rest, and they have less G, for example. And there's another query here where we see the heating need, the heating demand in single houses. And we see it separately with the climate zone. So as is usual, the cooler zones, they have more heating demand than the warmer. And there's also a comparison, a baseline of the demand that would have a passive house. So even DAs, they are far away to get this, to arrive to this demand. And some takeaways. Nowadays, we have the EPC register in open data. It's aligned with the EPBD recast that says that we have to have transparency with the data, but we have a lot of challenges. For example, to learn how to use this open data so it can be useful for different people. I don't know if citizens, but I'm sure that they can be very useful for ESCOs, for public bodies, for EPC certifiers. And we also have we have to relate much more the data, not only with the cadastre. The way when we'll have more data in open data, we can also make these relationships with the EPC. And it can be very useful for the National Building Renovation Plan, as the EPBD said. And also there will be some questions that I don't know how will be, but with the EPBD recast, there will be a new scale of the EPC. So we'll see how do we have this relationship with the existing buildings that they have already a scale, a label, and the new ones, we'll see. And one thing that we'll speak on now, it will be how to improve the data quality, that it's something that it's really important to get trust in it.
Okay, thank you very much, Ainhoa. We have a couple of questions in the chat. One of them refers to the previous presentation, is I think a question for Silvio. And then we have one for this presentation, which asks if there is any API to connect to this EPC database.
Yes, with the connection with the cadastre, there's an API.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Ainhoa. So then we move forward to the next presentation.
Shall I answer to the question or not?
Oh yeah, you want to answer here? Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a clarification. This is not the platform developed by ENEA at national level. It is a regional platform that we have only for our municipalities. It's really a place where we store information and data. Each municipality has its own access, and going there, the municipality can download all the information that we gather and collect on their behalf. So part of the job is already done. It has nothing to do with the national platform provided by ENEA. Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Thank you, Silvio. So let's go to session number 3, and in a way it's a continuation of the previous one. So we are going to talk about quality assessment of EPC database, and we're going to focus very much on the EPC database from Catalonia. The presentation will be delivered by Álvaro, Cecilia, and by Ainhoa also. It will be a shared presentation. Álvaro will start and then Ainhoa will follow in the same presentation. Let me introduce Álvaro first. Álvaro Cecilia is a researcher in our group, ARC, here at La Salle School of Architecture. He holds a PhD in computer science and is professor at La Salle Engineering School. Álvaro has been involved in many European and national projects, research projects, and has gained an extensive experience in the management and analysis of energy-related data for buildings and cities, particularly using semantic web technologies. So both Álvaro and Ainhoa will explain now the auditing we have done in TIMEPAC about the EPC database in Catalonia. So Álvaro is here next to me, so I just disappear from the screen and Álvaro will appear automatically here.
Okay, hello, good morning. Today, I'm going to explain the quality assessment of the EPC database contents. Let me move to the first slide. Okay, this presentation is divided in 3 sections. First, I will introduce the audit process that we carry out in the whole TIMEPAC project for 6 databases in 6 different countries. Then I will explain a brief introduction to the quality assessment procedures that we carry out in the project, and then Ainhoa will jump in and will explain how the quality assessment is carried out in Catalonia. So, EPC database auditing. So, the question is the following. Are our EPC databases ready for the EPBD recast? So we heard a lot about this new EPBD recently approved. Silvio explained the details. Also, Leandro in the introduction explained the new instruments, new indicators that we will need to store in some place. So are our EPC databases ready for this change, this incoming change? So 2 years ago, we didn't know. So we carry out an audit process in the databases that are part of the project in Austria, Croatia, Cyprus, Italy, Slovenia, and Spain. And we follow this process that you can see in the diagram, in which we start analyzing the database. Then we define some metrics. These metrics helps us to understand if, or to quantify if the database is good in a particular view or not. And then we develop a survey that was filled through some interviews by the experts of the database management systems, the people who manage the database, and also the users of the database, which is also important to understand how they use the database. And we iterate several times to just at the end make a report that you can find in the TIMEPAC website. So the first area that we explored was the uses of the EPC data. So we are storing data in the databases, great, but for what use? So these are the first metric, 1.1, number of uses. And here you can see in the chart, in the table, that, for example, the quality control, the creation of statistics, the policy making, research purposes are the main uses in the whole databases. Also, production of results, monitoring the current status are others that are used for, so are the uses of this data. And this is important to understand how the data is used. Then we wanted to understand how the database, the EPC database is populated and how it's connected to other databases, because this will increase the reliability of our data, the accuracy. For example, if in the EPC database we have year of construction of one building, and then if we link to the cadastre and the year of construction is different, we can detect inconsistencies. So this connection is important to have them. And as you can see in the slide, only Italy, Slovenia, and Spain has the database connected to other sources, mainly the cadastre and some geographical databases. So this is great, but not all of databases in the pilots that we are having in the project did that connection. But in the metric number 2, we can see the number of sources, data sources, in which the EPC database is getting data from. So it's not a connection, it's just getting data from. And we can see that almost all of them are getting data from the cadastre. So the certified doesn't need to put all the fields in the report, only those that are not in the cadastre. Also, there are connections to geographical databases. Okay, the next metric is about the data access, how this data is published. As we saw before, Ainhoa explained about the Catalonia database. Catalonia which is a region of Spain, is right now sharing 75% of their data, which is a lot. Also, Slovenia and Italy is great. And the other percent that is not shared probably is private data, the name of the certifier, the profile, and so on. Yeah. And here also we put another metric, which is the number of formats in which you share the data. And this has to do with the question of Jordi, I think, which is about if there is an API or not. And this is important, yeah, because if we share with non-proprietary formats like CSV file, the data will be better reused by third parties and the citizens. So this is something that is great. And as we can see, the Catalonia database is doing the homework, because they share a lot of the data is shared in different number of formats, most of them non-proprietary. Then we explain and we explore the scope, and the left figure you can see that Austria, Italy, and Spain are regional databases. So every region in those countries has their own database, and this could be okay. But then when we put all together as EPBD recast wants, then we will have some troubles, but it's okay. And then the number of certificates, and you can see here the number of certificates in each database, which Italy has around 1 million, Spain more than 1 million, Austria less than 1 million, well, more or less. Then how the other metric that we used is how the data is updating. And we explore if the data, when the certifier uploads the documentation to the energy agency, is automated or not uploaded into the system. And 60% of databases they have these automations. These automations are important because it will reduce the human error. That's important. And also you have a figure of the number of EPCs uploaded each month, which in Spain is more or less around 1,000, the same in Italy. And in Cyprus is less than 100 because, well, it's a small country. Then also we explore the technology, and here we created this index, the Simplified Database Complexity Index, in which we take into consideration the schema, the number of tables, number of columns, the relationships, to understand if there is if it is a schema complex or not. And this is important because when these databases are going to be updated according to the new EPBD, those that has a high simplified database complex index will have more work to do because it will be more difficult for them. And as you can see, only Croatia has a high index, but the other countries are okay. With regard to the content, we, as the EPBD recast wants to do, we have to deal with building renovation passports. Also, we have to take into consideration that EPC takes data from the monitoring systems. So we wanted to know if the databases actually they are getting this data or not. Only one country is considering this data and are storing this data, which is Austria. The other ones, they are not doing this kind of integrations. Okay, so this is the status of the databases as we have it now. And then we carry out a quality assessment of these databases. This quality assessment was mainly done by our colleagues from the Politecnico di Torino that I will briefly explain today in 5 minutes, but then they will have a very deep presentation about this quality assessment in the next webinar next Wednesday. So this quality checking, we create some validity rules to understand, for example, if the data type is okay or not. For example, if the year of construction, I am expecting a number between 0, for example, and 2024. If if I see a text, then this is wrong. If I am seeing a decimal value, this is also wrong. So this is the kind of rules that we are checking. Also inconsistencies that I have a heating system in my building, but the heating demand or the heating consumption is 0, for example. and also physical impossibilities. Yeah, and these are the critical parameters that we are checking: building use, year of construction, heating volume, refrigerated volume, heating demand, the consumption, and the performance. And I wanted to show you one of these examples. These rules were created with a tool made by the Politecnico di Torino team, and it was an Excel tool that you can use for checking if the EPC is okay or not. There are several formulas. They are checking more than 100 columns to carry out this assessment. Yeah, and we translated this tool into SQL. SQL is the language for talking with databases, because the database of Catalonia is very big. I already mentioned that there are more than 1,400,000 certificates. So here you can see one rule. Yeah, the rule is the following: if the building is heated, then the heating surface and the heating volume has to have a value, and the height of the space should be greater than 2.5. So this is according to one of our regulations. And here you can see the code that I'm not going to read it because it's not the point, but you can see that we are checking different things. If it is 0, if it is not null, if it is the division, and so on. So it's a work that is hard to do, but at the end it has rewards. Another rule is the heated efficiency rule. Here we check if the building has a heating system, then the efficiency should be greater than 0 or not null, so have a value. Yeah. Or if the heating system is not in the building for whatever reason, then the efficiency should be 0 or should be null. So these are another tool, another rule for checking all these EPCs, if they are okay or not. These are the results. This percentage that you can see in the screen are the percentage of the buildings that are, or the EPCs that are wrong according to those rules. And since I am running out of time, I will go ahead. Another tool that we have to carry out the building renovation programs are the archetypes, the reference buildings. And in the TIMEPAC project, we define several archetypes for every region. It's a work that was led also by the Politecnico di Torino. And here in Catalonia, we develop more than 20 different archetypes based on different year of construction and different properties. And this is something that will be further explained in the next webinar next Wednesday. So now I pass the word to Ainhoa to explain the quality of EPC in the Register of Catalonia. Thank you.
Thank you again. Well, it can be very broad to think about the quality of the EPC. How can we improve it, and who have to do it? Because we have the register, but the information comes from all the EPCs done by certifiers. So one important point is that the information that they introduce in the tools is correct. So the part of the training, I think that it's really, really important to get this quality of the information. Nowadays in Spain, there's no compulsory to do a specific training to make us EPC. It depends on your background. If you are architect, engineer, you can do the EPCs. So it could change in the future because there's a new regulation that will tell us exactly if there's a compulsory training or not. We'll see. And there's another part that the EPC certifiers tell us, that the EPCs should be better paid, so we can dedicate more time to get this quality of the EPCs. There's also the fundamental part of the EPC registers, of course, that we have to improve the controls. But the controls, it's important that we try to get them that they will be more automatic, so they will help us to get good quality. And also the inspections. There's also the part of the owners and occupants that I think that we don't usually think about this part. At the end, if they understand the product they are paying, if they understand the EPC, they can see, because they know their house better than us, they can see if the information is correct. So first one, they have to value this product, not only as, well, I have to do it because it's compulsory, but something that can help me to improve the energy performance of my house. If they think that it's valuable, this product, they will take a look. If they understand it and if they see something that is wrong, they will ask for them to be corrected. So I think that this part is also very, very important. And we can think also about other entities. For example, nowadays we have the Next Generation funds. So the different public bodies, they are taking a look also to the EPC to see if they accomplish the reduction, the savings that the grant says. And also the part of the financial institutions that they will see if the label it's correct to give a better loan, better conditions of a loan, for example. In the EPC register of Catalonia, we have a website with a lot of information. In fact, we were in a project last year where citizens and also EPC certifiers evaluate our website. And they said, well, there's so much information that it's difficult to get the one that I need. So we have to do this work to improve the friendliness of the website. And there's facts. There's also documents specific for common mistakes done with the EPC. There's also explanation about the different procedures and the access also to open data. We have also alarms in the registration form. So we can see if there's some parameters that they are not correct before we get the information in the register. This is very, very important to save time for everybody. So this is alarms. They can give you a message of warning. So it's important to see this parameter. For example, the COP of the COP of the heating pump, or it can be a message of mistake that you have to solve some data that it's not correct in order to present in the register. We have also a specific amendment form. So if a certifier finds that there's something wrong, can present this specific form to correct the data that they have introduced they have presented in the register. And we can also ask for the revision of the EPC, so it's presented the new version with the amendment form. And we have also alarms in the back office of the register to help to control the quality of the EPCs. And we have also inspections, and they are from 1% of the EPCs that they are registered. Here we have the volume of the EPCs in Catalonia. We are 7.5 million of people, and the EPCs that we have, it's as I said before, 1,400,000 EPCs. There's a lot because there's a lot of apartments that they have their own EPC. And we see also how many EPCs get into the register every year. It's around 140,000. And the number of amendments, that they are 3,000, around, more or less. It represents the 2.4% of the EPCs. And here we see the more common requirements that we did do in the register about the procedure, if they have presented the EPC as an existing building, or it should be a new one, a new building, or in the country, or if there's inconsistency between documents, or the air renewables are too low, or if there's no thermal bridges, or the photovoltaic is not well represented in the tools. And the certifier can also correct some problem if the address is not correct. And we have also alarms, like 80 alarms in the back office to see all this data if we have to correct them. There's also the EPBD that tell us that we have to improve the control of the EPCs. We'll have to be sure that the 90% of the data of the EPCs, they are correct. There will be different measures to improve the quality, like to do additional training for the independent experts, to see if there are fines or bans if there are not good practices. And this type of quality of the EPC must be public, so people will see the results of this quality assessment. And the takeaways about this part, it would be that the EPC databases will include new data, as we saw before, with new indicators like life cycle global warming potential of SRI. It will have to be linked with other databases, and we have new challenges, like the new regulation that will be in Spain, and perhaps it will be compulsory to do training in order to make EPCs. It's important that there will be more cooperation with other public bodies to improve the quality of the EPCs. We want to do some YouTube videos explaining the most common mistakes from ICANN. The EPC, it's important to be more friendly and comprehensive. In order, the owners will ask for more quality of the EPC, and of course to do more controls and inspections. And I give the floor to Leandro.
Thank you, Ainhoa. We are running a little bit out of time, and I would suggest that there are some questions on the chat, and I would suggest that you take a look to them and please answer in the chat so we can gain some time. We have half an hour more or less for the last two presentations, which are very much connected because they are focusing on the Renewable project. So I will be delivering part of this presentation together with Adirane Calvo, which is a researcher in our research group here in the School of Architecture. Adirane holds a master's degree. She's an architect and holds a master's degree in sustainable buildings and also another master's degree in building information modeling. She gained professional experience with LEED and BREEAM sustainability certification systems, and currently she's a PhD candidate here in our university. As part of our research group, Adirane is actively involved in the National Research Project RETABIT, which we're going to talk about, as well as in TIMEPAC. In this session, we are going to address the issue of interconnectivity of databases across multiple domains and scales, including EPC databases, with the aim to develop strategies to foster large-scale building renovation programs. And as an example, we will focus on the work we are doing in the RETABIT project. So I will start quickly an introduction, a very brief introduction, and then Adirane will follow. So what is the topic we are dealing here is in this presentation in TIMEPAC and also in this project is the context of building renovation. And the challenge we are facing is to develop large-scale renovation programs to upgrade the building stock. This requires first to know the status of the building stock. where to intervene to have the desired impact, and which are the objectives, concerning not only energy performance, but also a comprehensive approach to sustainability issues, including social, economic, environmental dimensions. So as you can see here, I've tried to describe in this diagram what is the essence of the problem we are facing. So we are dealing with multiple scales. We have seen, Ainhoa has mentioned that there are so many certificates here in Catalonia because there are EPCs of the dwellings, of the apartments. So the dwelling level is one of the scales we are dealing with. We are dealing also with the building scale, considering buildings as entities, as isolated objects. And then we are dealing with the urban scale as well, which has to do not only with buildings and their interconnectivity through district heating or through communities of energies, for example, but also with environmental questions like the air quality, climate, and so on. So when we are trying to analyze from a comprehensive perspective the building stock, we have to consider these different scales, how they are interconnected, and also the correspondence between the data we have in these different levels. So there's data that is specific for a particular level. For example, climate is specific for the urban environment, but we have EPCs that could be for the dwelling unit or also for the building level. So all of this correspondence between building scales, built environment scales and data is something that we need to address. And then we have the interventions. I mean, we analyze the building stock from a comprehensive way with the data we have in order to improve it. Where to intervene, with which measures, with which impact. These are key questions that local administrations or other private entities might formulate in order to upgrade the building stock. So there are stakeholders like local administrations. There are instruments to be used, like planning instruments or like U-beams. They are also at the building level and at the urban level. So in order to do this analysis, we need to connect the data with indicators and with the objectives that we have. So therefore, when we have a particular objective, like, for example, reducing carbon emission in accordance with the EU regulations, this is our objective as a municipality, for example, then we need some indicators like energy efficient, energy recovering homes, like median income, indicators that allow us to understand the complexity of the issue, not only energy performance, but also other economic and social issues. And in order to apply these indicators, we need data. And data has to be retrieved, and indicators have to be designed and defined in order to understand the problem we want to solve. To make it simple, basically, we have here two issues, one in the horizontal line and one in the vertical line. In the horizontal line, what we need to do is to align our objectives with the indicators and with the data. We can start wherever in this line, but the three have to be aligned. The data has to be in accordance with the objectives and with the indicators we use to analyze the issue. And then when we come to the interventions, the vertical dimension of this diagram, then we have to know what is the impact in the urban scale, social, economical, etc., of the measures we take at the building scale. And conversely, when we develop a large-scale renovation program, we need to develop strategies, economic, social, and also physical renovation measures that affect the individual building. And there is time. Time because this iteration is not only a loop inside itself, also evolves on the time because the buildings are renovated on the time, and we consider the life cycle of the whole building. In Recast, we try to address this complexity, thinking of the building as part of a larger environment, and this is the schema that we presented in the proposal of this national research project that we are developing together with the IREC Institute, Catalonia Research Institute of Energy here in Catalonia. So basically what we wanted to do is to assess the building stock in order to integrate multiple data sources and develop multidimensional indicators addressing the complexity of the renovation of buildings. So there's information about the website you are interested, but basically the purpose of the Recast project is, because still going on, to develop a data-driven service platform to evaluate the current status of an urban area with the purpose of improving renovation of buildings, and second, to elaborate and assess the impact of the renovation scenarios that are simulated. The platform is under development, and we have now some screenshots we want to show and to share with you. And just without more delay, I give the word to Adirane, who's also here. So Adirane, please.
Thank you. Well, now I'm going to focus on the creation and the visualization of these indicators within the Redavit platform. In Redavit, we use different data from different data sources to create different KPIs, key performance indicators that were categorized in different domains: environmental and energy domain, socioeconomic domain, and social and urban domain within the Redavit database. This database directly feeds the Redavit platform, which is divided in two sections. The first one is the analysis section, which use these KPIs to feed georeferenced multidimensional building models to analyze the area that the users of the platform needs to address, investigate, and so on. The second part of the platform is the retrofitting evaluation actions, which is based on the previous analysis and in which the energy domain KPIs address the main retrofitting needs and opportunities. The socioeconomic KPIs address some retrofitting barriers and opportunities related to the feasibility of the alternatives for renovation, and the social and urban KPIs allows the user to make a broader evaluation of the area and improve and allow for looking for further improvements. To develop these KPIs, we started a process of several steps. The first one was a literature review of the available KPIs and the relation with the sustainability development goals. Then the data source nature and availability were also assessed, and the granularity in a final stage were also assessed. With this process, we came at first with 118 potential KPIs, and they were reduced for application to 36 selected KPIs. Here you can see some image of how we handle all this information within the process, and how we, in a teamwork after the data evaluation, we prioritize its KPI to select the 36. After these selections, we need to evaluate how these KPIs can be applied at building scale, which is our basic unit of analysis. In this process, we evaluate the scale applicability, the data availability, and the rules for calculation coming from a literature review. After this process, from the 36 selected KPIs, we have 16 implemented KPIs. These 16 implemented KPIs can be categorized based on the type of calculation. We have KPIs coming directly from data, simulation KPIs based on the simulation of archetypes, calculated KPIs coming from data, and combined KPIs coming from the combination of other KPIs. I bring here some examples. I'm running out of time, so I will pass a bit quick in one of them. Here you can see an example of KPI equals to data. It's the median household income, and it's defined as the median household income per building. It can be used to evaluate the economic situation of the population, and the data to evaluate these buildings came from the National Institute of Statistics. Since the data it's available for the use purpose, we can directly took this data as KPI only by associating the data to each building within the same census unit. This is still, the same data is applied to all buildings within the same census unit. Due to sensitive data protections, we cannot access to the building level median household income data. Regarding to environmental KPIs, it's important to highlight that two paths to achieve energy KPIs can be followed, each of them having different purposes. The first one is the KPI coming from EPC data, and the second one is the KPI coming from urban energy modeling of parameterized archetype simulation. Both of them are equally reliable, but serve for different purposes. Due to the standardized calculation, the the KPIs coming from the EPC data is suitable for comparability analysis. However, due to the possibilities to change all the parameters within the archetype simulation, this path is more suitable for the renovation options. However, they are complementary and they can be also studied and compared between themselves. The simulation KPI could be, for example, the final energy consumption, and the EPC KPI could be achieved by using the EPC data based on 3 different scenarios. The building has an EPC, some of the dwellings have EPCs, or none the dwellings, not the building have EPCs. The first situation, we have buildings data that can be directly transferred to the Retavit KPIs because we use the buildings as the basic unit. In the second and the third cases, we have to calculate the Retavit KPI as the median value of the EPC data from each dwelling of the building. And because we don't have the data, we have to estimate it. The estimation process relies on TIMEPAC quality checking methodology to input the EPC reliable data into a machine learning regression model that helps us to address the non-dwellings data with the non-dwellings data. With this machine learning regression model, we had the data from all dwellings, and we can then calculate the Retavit KPIs. Here I have some other example of social KPI calculation, but I'm going to pass directly to the combined KPI. For the combined KPI, we have the example of the vulnerability degree against heat waves and temperature rise, which is the vulnerability value resulting from comfort decrease within the buildings due to heat island effects. It is used to evaluate resilience and quality of life, and it's a combination of 3 different sub-KPIs that have their values standardized from 1 to 3, and that can give us a value from 0 to 9, being 0 the less vulnerability and 9 the highest vulnerability. I bring another example. I bring some examples of how these KPIs can be analyzed within the platform. Here you can see the Retavit platform welcome page. Then if you want to start the analysis, we can select an area of analysis. In this case, for example, is Sabadell, and we can go to the analysis tab. Here, as first summarized problems of Sabadell can be shown. In this case, is the vulnerability of heat waves, energy efficiency buildings, and the vulnerable population. If we want to analysis more in depth each of one KPIs, we can continue with the arrow tab. Once we are inside the KPI, we can see that this KPI affects a large percentage of buildings and a large percentage of people living inside those buildings. Here in the text, we have some numeric values about how these people and buildings and surroundings are affected by other characteristics of the area. In the case of the graphics, it says to us the characteristics of the buildings, for example, the type of building, the year of construction, and the area, and the percentage of occupation. And in the right, we can see the relationship of this KPI with other KPIs important for addressing the problem, like, for example, the urban equipment of 15-minute cities that help us to figure out if there are climatic shelters in the area. In this case, for example, we can also see that our cities, it has more equipment than the region and the province. Then, if we want to focus on these specific aspects, we can navigate through See More, and a map appears. Here starts the personalized analysis of the area by navigating through different indicators, and you can also do zoom out to have a broader analysis area, and this information can also be seen in table format by clicking on table. But it's important to remind why we started this analysis. So in the right side of the in the left side of the platform, the problem remains explained, and also more relationships with other KPIs stay, and also the characteristics of the buildings that we want to address remains. And this is it. For as takeaways, we can consider that there is a need to address all the sustainability goals going beyond urban energy model and energy itself. Because of that, we have two main needs. First, the adequate data granularity to ensure reliability of analysis, avoiding assumptions or inaccuracies, and the standardization of key performance indicators to ensure alignment of global goals with renovation actions, and that issues are properly addressed and measures adequate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adirane. So let's move to the next presentation, the final one. Sorry, we probably will finish 5 minutes later. Sorry for that. Now it's again the turn of Alvaro, and he's going to continue this presentation talking about the composite indicators.
Okay, thank you. So as we saw before, in the Directive project, we wanted to make this analysis holistic, to consider different dimensions, not only energy, and the idea is to support with this analysis the building renovation programs. And here I bring a tool which is not new. This tool, the composite indicators, is something that has been used for several years in economics and in other disciplines. And here we bring back to Directive project and to the building renovation programs, because can help to understand the complexity of these programs and the complexity of the urban environment. So let's first start with the basis. A composite indicator is formed with individual indicators that are aggregated, are compiled to understand the multidimensional concept that we are exploring. The purpose of this indicator, or this composite indicator, is to simplify the complexity that we're going to analyze. Also, to facilitate comparisons, we can create two plans, and with this composite indicator, we can say, okay, maybe plan A is better than B. And also because this indicator will offer qualified understanding of the multidimensional issues. So we're not going to see only one dimension. We're going to see, for example, 3 dimensions at the same time, or 20 dimensions, depending on the indicator. Yeah? So how is created this indicator? It's a 4-step process. First, we need to identify which sub-indicators we're going to use, 3, 4, whatever. For example, if we want to carry out a building renovation program which has a social impact, the indicators would be the energy consumption, for example, for the buildings, the building status, and also the vulnerability of the people, the household income, for example. So there are 3 different indicators. So this is the selection. Then we need to normalize. Normalize, what does it mean? That the indicators should go, the values of the indicator should go from 0 to 1. And there are several ways to normalize, and well, and I'm going into details, yeah? And then we need to weight the indicators. Weighting means to identify which indicator is more important than the others. For example, I am a urban planner and I'm going to do this building renovation program for social impact. Maybe I'm going to say that the family income is more important than energy consumption, because I want to just to address these issues of vulnerability. So I need to specify the weights for each indicator. And then the final aggregation is the sum of the multiplication of the weights with the multiplication of the normalized indicators. Here is one example that is from the European Commission. They have a portal, a very interesting portal that you have the URL there, and you can navigate, and you can see some scoreboards, some indicators. They call it index, but it's the same. And there is the Energy Transition Index, which summarizes the country's energy system performance and their energy transition readiness. I don't know if you can read in the slide, but there are 14 different indicators, sub-indicators, that they are aggregated to have this final energy transition index for most of the countries on the world. Yeah? And this percentage that you can see in the screen, 33%, 50%, 40, 60, are the weights that they are using to aggregate the energy transition index. So we bring this idea of composite index to the Recast platform, in which we have 16 indicators, more than 16 indicators, to enable the urban planner to create their own composite indicators to understand the reality of their cities. So here are some examples. For example, let's see that the urban planner wants to identify areas that has a low urban and building quality, and the people who lives in those areas has some economic issues. Yeah. So we, in Recast platform, we get data from the cadastre, from the national statistics, from the land cover, also for weather data and the household rental prices. All of these data sources are integrated in the Recast database. And for this particular question, we can address it with the median household income indicator and with the vulnerability to heat wave temperature rise. Here are some maps. The first, the left maps are the indicators, and the right map that you can see here is the composite indicator, where we put together both indicators. And for example, the urban planner can focus on the darker areas, which are the indicators that has more priority to carry out this renovation program. I will skip this one. Also, if we want to have this question, which will include or will require data from different dimensions, socioeconomic, social and urban and energy, the question will be the following. Where are the areas where vulnerable inhabitants live in non-efficient buildings with an urban context that doesn't enhance the energy efficiency? So for answering this question, we need data from different sources, as we saw before, and the indicators that we will use are the median household income, the green areas, and the heating demand. So we put together these three indicators, as you can see in the map, and then we have this composition based on different weights and different different indicators, and then the urban planner can say, okay, maybe this neighborhood or this area has issues, maybe we can focus the next building renovation program in that particular area. So how we how we implement this composite indicator in the Recast platform. Here in the screen, you can see the mockup. It's a functional mockup that has been implemented as a website, as the one that has been shown by Adirane. Here you can see, for example, the house price at census unit scale. You can zoom in, and then you will see this indicator for all the buildings that we have in the municipality. And then on the left side, you can click on this button that maybe you can read, that you can create the composite indicator. A new pane is displayed for the user, and on the left side, you can see in blue all the indicators that we have, and the user can click on the indicators, can drag the sliders to define the weights for each indicator, and then the map will recalculate all these composite indicators on real time. And it's a pity that I can't show you in live, but it's very fast, these calculations. Also, every time that the user modifies an indicator is recalculated, but here brings one important issue: how the urban planner can select the indicators, because there are so many, they have to read them and it's difficult to them. So we have created an artificial intelligence module in which this module will take a description that you can see here on the left. Is the same question that I showed you before. The user can take this description, the artificial intelligence module will parse it, and then will pre-select the indicators for the end user. The end user can change the selection if they want, but at the end, this pre-selection will help the user to understand the indicators and to have a better working with the interface. Once you come back, these composite indicators can be calculated at different scales. It's the same composite indicator that we saw before that now is a census unit. And also, let me move forward. Once you have the composite indicator, also you can visualize the sub-index. For example, here I'm seeing the median household income or the energy renovated buildings or the vulnerability to heat waves. So everything is in the platform and the user has the power to visualize the composite index or to visualize the individual sub-indexes. So just to finalize the presentation, the final takeaways, this tool, the composite indicator is not new, but it's important that we can use it for our building renovation programs. It's something that has some risks because it might oversimplify the complex data. So you as an end user, you need to understand how it works and what you are seeing. And also I wanted to bring another thing that artificial intelligence tools, that the one that we are integrating in the Retrofit project, can help the end user to understand this complexity of creating building renovation programs at different urban scales. Okay, thank you. That's the final slide. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Álvaro. We are now at the end of the webinar. We still have some minutes for any question you would like to write here in the chat before we closed. So please, if you have any urgent question, otherwise you can also contact us via email. Okay, so if there are no issues, then we can just proceed to close this webinar. And we'd like to invite you to the next one. This has been the fourth. We have two more. And the next one will be on exploitation of EPC for local, regional, and national energy planning. It will be hosted by our colleagues from Polito. It will be on Wednesday at the same time, 10 to 12. We also invite you to help us to evaluate the quality of this webinar. There's an online questionnaire that you will receive. Okay, you will receive by email, right? Or because, yeah, better by email. Yeah, we have some issue here with the computer. It will not be appearing here on the chat, but you will receive an email. Please check the spam, because sometimes these emails go to the spam, and you will get the link for the evaluation. So apart from that, so thank you very much for the attention, for the interest in TIMEPAC. See you in the next webinars. Have a nice day.